Republican Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne of Irving, thank you so much. Welcome back to Eye on Politics.
Thank you, good to be here.
So you recently posted on X about this working paper from the Dallas Federal Reserve Bank about the impact that illegal immigration had on the country, specifically labor and housing and rents and all that. And the report found that there were 7 million people who were unauthorized in the U.S., added to the U.S. population between early 2021 and 2024, nearly double the amount of legal immigration, and that roughly 30% of total employment growth was due to this. Roughly 30% of the total growth in housing prices was because of this, and 20% of total growth in rents because of this. So what was your reaction when you saw this?
We've actually been saying this for a number of months now. I don't think people sometimes understand the ramifications of having so many folks enter your country illegally in such a short period of time and the financial disaster that it causes. And I want to make sure that people heard those numbers. It caused an increase in housing by 30%. It caused an increase in rental rates by 20%, which, when President Trump was running for this position for a second time, he was very clear to say, we have got to focus on deportations. There's a reason why. Look at what happened to the housing market. And as a direct result, by the way, what you're seeing now is prices coming down. You've had over 3.5 million people either self-deport or have been deported, through this administration, and it's having an immediate reaction in the market on housing. We have to continue that, and then you also look at some of the other costs associated with fraud. I mean, look at the Somalia fraud in childcare in Minnesota. But there's an estimated $500 billion in fraud in costs of illegal immigration on top of just the increases in housing costs. So it's something that this administration is taking very seriously. I think it's something that most people support, and I think we need to see more of it.
What's Congress doing about it?
Well, one, we're giving them the resources that they need to be able to do the job. Two, we're being able to support the policies that are in place. When we look at our Working Families Tax Cut bill, it actually put provisions in there to be able to support Immigration and Customs Enforcement and CBP, Customs and Border Protection work, to make sure that they were going after folks that were in our country illegally and committing crimes. And I think that is something that people voted for, and that's what we're taking seriously.
So you brought up the Working Families Tax Cuts, also known as the One Big Beautiful Bill. Democrats, as you know, call it the One Big Ugly Bill.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we called their Inflation Reduction Act the Inflation Act. We called the Affordable Care Act the Unaffordable Care Act. I mean, it's name games.
What is the biggest overall? Because at least, in the Senate race right now, we're seeing this dispute between James Tallarico and Ken Paxton. Paxton obviously supported it. Tallarico did not.
Yeah.
And he said that $3 trillion from this bill went to the 1% of the population, to the richest of the rich. What do you say to that?
Well, the fact is that 96% of working Americans were able to take advantage of this bill, and they got benefits from this bill. This bill also avoided a 22% increase in taxes, the largest in our nation's history. So every single Democrat that was against this bill or that voted against this bill, which was all of them in the House and in the Senate, what you saw was they were supportive of a $4 trillion tax hike, because that's what would have happened if we had not extended the tax provisions. That was what we were going to see is the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. All of those tax cuts were set to expire at the end of last year.
Meaning a tax increase for everybody.
$4 trillion tax increase, 22% tax increase. So for every Democrat voted for that tax increase. But we were able to avoid 22% increase. But we were also looking at provisions that increase the standard deduction for nearly 40 million Americans. We were looking at, for our seniors, giving them an increase in their standard deduction that 35 million seniors were able to take advantage of. You look at nearly 30 million Americans that were able to take advantage of the no tax on overtime, the 7.5 million Americans that were able to take advantage of the no tax on tips. We saw the largest increase in the largest amount of rebate checks being written to families. And again, 96% 90% of Americans were able to take, working Americans were able to take advantage of that. So as much as we're hearing the criticism that it was only billionaires that got the benefit of this bill, the fact is I have never met a billionaire who is concerned about working, taxes on tips or taxes on overtime. These are benefiting working families, and that's exactly who we have seen be able to take the gross amount. When you look at percentages, that's who it helped.
Democrats emphasize the cuts in growth in Medicaid because there were work requirements.
Yeah.
And what do you say to that?
I think what has happened with our healthcare system is the fact that we're spending almost $5 trillion a year on healthcare. That the costs have gotten absolutely out of control, and it's because of the expansion of it. The expansion, they always say, is going to be temporary, just to fix a hole like during COVID, but they end up becoming permanent. And so adding work requirements in, if you're accepting Medicaid, was the way it always was. It was a change in what caused the uncontrollable growth. And so I think most Americans, who, especially those who are working, do not mind having work requirements in there. That was something that just made common sense. And so yes, Democrats, any single time they're handing out dollars, are going to be upset about it. But the fact is that hardworking Americans that are every day going to work and having to struggle are very appreciative of the fact that we are being very fiscally responsible with how those taxpayer dollars are being paid out. And folks who need the money are the ones who are being robbed of it, because they had expanded it to such an extreme that people who really needed it could not get it.
You recently wrote a letter, and I think there were other members of Congress who signed it, urging the Trump administration, the Vice President and the Secretary of State to investigate allegations of H-1B visa fraud. Where does that stand? Is the administration investigating? Have you gotten a response?
Well, if you look at the numbers alone, they have definitely cracked down. I think there's 100,000 student violations, student fraud, HB1 violations that they recently uncovered. So the administration is absolutely taking it seriously. But one of the things I think drew my attention to was when you looked at the fraud numbers and the HB1 numbers that were happening, the HB1 visa numbers that were happening in North Texas, specifically in Irving, Texas. We had Sarah Gonzalez with Ablaze. She did some fantastic undercover investigations and seeing that there were houses that had dozens and dozens of H-1B visa workers that were empty homes. And she went and she tracked this stuff down. And these types of reports are shocking.
But they're not confirmed though, right? What? They're not confirmed necessarily. You want the administration to confirm all this, right?
Well, one, they need to confirm the fraud is happening. I think they've been able to do that. You've seen that they're taking the letter serious, and that letter was signed by Congressman Pat Fallon, Congressman Ronnie Jackson, Congressman Brandon Gill, all from North Texas, urging, because we're seeing it in our own backyards, urging the administration to not only look at what the fraud numbers are, but also work with the agencies to figure out what we need to do in Congress to be able to fix it. And so we are still working with that. I think we're taking a much more aggressive, much more engaging approach with the administration to prevent that from happening. But look, we had jobs that were being created for these phantom visa holders that were affecting Americans being able to get jobs, that were affecting Americans being able to get paid, what those job numbers were going for, because all of a sudden you had folks who were coming here from other countries that were taking advantage of this program, getting paid much less than American workers for doing the same thing, which was driving down wage numbers. But this program was meant to be for the cream of the crop that we could not find in the U.S., and it has really morphed into something that it was not what it was meant for. It's lowered wages, that we've lowered the number of hirings. And I think if you look at the number of hirings now in the last year, the job numbers from this administration, you're seeing that a lot more of them are Native Americans who are getting those jobs, people who are actually born in this country who are getting these jobs, not from foreign workers who are coming in. And you're also seeing a lot of the job numbers that are being created in the private sector versus in the government sector. But it's a problem.
Let's talk about the job fair that you hold annually, again in early August.
August 6th this year. August 6th from 11 to 3 at Globe Life Field.
And My understanding is that you have more than double the number of businesses that have already applied to take part. Is that right?
We have had to change the location 3 times because we have run, from the time that we first did this the first year, where we're going to do it in a elementary school library, to doing it at the Irving Convention Center. It was a great location, but we didn't have enough parking. And then last year, the last 2 years, we've done it at Globe Life Field. We're running out of space there. So already a full month out, we have come to our space allotments, unless we go out onto the field, which it's during, they're still in season, the Rangers are still playing, that may be a problem. But we have over 550 businesses right now that have 550 businesses right now that have already shown an interest, representing well over 30,000 job opportunities. In previous years, about 30% of those jobs have been $100,000 and above jobs. So this is not your typical job fair. This now represents the largest job fair in the country. And it's going to be August 6th, again from 11 to 3 over at Globe Life Field. And for those people who want to find out what industries, it basically covers the gamut of industries, healthcare, law enforcement, academics, technology. Really, there's an infinite number of industries, from the starter jobs to CEO and C-suite level positions. But they can find out more information by going to ntxjobs.com. So North Texas, ntxjobs.com for more information. It doesn't cost anybody anything to come. We're covering all the costs for the job fair. All the businesses participate, at no cost. We want people to be able to get jobs. That's what our job is. You mentioned Medicaid and having job requirements. It's one thing to pass a bill in D.C. That require people to have a job. It's a much different thing to come home and really boots on the ground helping individuals get a job. And that's what this job fair is meant to do. And we've had a phenomenal response in previous years, and the response this year is even blowing those out of the water.
And it's interesting because you have so many businesses, you said, who are taking part in this, and yet we hear that the labor market is tight. Not a lot of firing going on, but not a lot of hiring going on. And yet here you have all these companies that have expressed an interest taking part, 550. So what's going on, do you think?
I think a lot of it has to do with where we are. Texas is really a miracle state. You've got elected officials who, find the fact that you've got businesses who invest billions of dollars into our state to be a good thing. When we have people who are employed and have opportunities for, to create generational wealth, those are good things. So I think, you've got light regulation, you've got light taxes, a positive business environment in Texas, and people want to live here. People want to work here. People want to start companies and invest here. So I think that's a little bit different than what you're seeing in New York, where they have lost billions and billions of dollars of companies investing in their communities because of the negative environment, because of their over-regulation, because of the over-taxation. So you're seeing hundreds of thousands of people leaving those states, states like New York, states like California, to come to places like Texas. And you're seeing it in our economic growth, and you're seeing it in the job opportunities that we've got. And you're also seeing people who are already down here who may have jobs, high-paying jobs, but they want higher-paying jobs. They want to have more flexibility. They want to change their careers, and that happens all in North Texas, and we're just happy to be able to help facilitate that.
Do you remember, like in your past years, as far as placement, like percentage of placement? I mean, do you remember what
we've tried doing exit interviews? What I find probably the best feedback is I walk the floor. I walk the floor and I go and try to hit every single booth, and we talk to as many people as we possibly can. And this last year, when we just got there, and a gentleman ran up to me and he said, "I don't know if you remember me, but last year I was here looking for a job." He goes, "I found a job at your job fair, and now I am here this year, and I'm actually working a booth to hire people." And that that really strikes home, because a lot of times these bills that we pass take forever to actually feel the result, and especially in your own district. But to see that kind of immediate transformation of somebody's life because they're able to get a job at just at a job fair that you were able to put together, it's a lot of work. This year we actually have, again, more businesses that want to participate, but we actually have more of our elected officials who are on board and partnering with us. I think we already have 84 of our elected officials who have all partnered with us to be able to advertise to their constituents about the job fair. And this is completely bipartisan, it's nonpartisan. We work with all of our mayors, our state reps, our congress members, our chambers, our businesses to get them there. And once you have the jobs, you've got the opportunities, the people absolutely follow.
Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne, thank you so much.
Great, thank you so much. This has been awesome.
We appreciate it.